Thank you for calling the Venue Helpline, the podcast where venues share their biggest frustrations, toughest challenges, and behind the scenes headaches. If you run a venue or work at one and you've ever thought, oh, why is this so hard? You're in the right place. Each week, you'll hear practical solutions from vetted experts who've been there, done that, and know what actually works. Because running a venue is hard enough. You shouldn't have to figure it out alone. Now, let me put you on a brief hold for the next available helper.
Hi, glad you called. It's Shannon here with the Venue Help Desk. Tell me what's going on.
Okay, here's something I'm stuck on. We have our venue packages front and center on our website, and when someone inquires, we send the info right away. But then, crickets. We just never hear back. I don't know if it's that the packages aren't clear or if I'm giving them too much too fast or maybe not enough. I just want couples to actually understand what's included, what it costs, and what they're getting by booking with us. So, what can I do to make my packages easier to understand and actually get more people to move forward?
Oh my God, this is something we're hearing over and over again. You're not the only caller reaching out with the same exact frustration. It's such a common issue that venues are struggling with. There's that balance of how much information to send and when should I be sending it and in what format should I be putting it out there. This matters so much, and I'm glad you called in with this problem because unclear or overwhelming packages really stall the entire sales process. It causes couples a lot of times to ghost you, and it leaves venues starting to second guess their pricing or their offerings. And it sounds like that's a little bit of what's going on with you. See, couples are going to compare your packages side by side with other venues without any kind of context. They're looking for fast and dirty information to compare A to B to C to D as quickly and easily as possible. And overly detailed information or using like jargon heavy packages and industry specific acronyms causes so much confusion. Instead of actually helping the couples, you are the speed bump on the road. Too much info can really overwhelm them, and too little info can frustrate them and push them away. Packages that don't highlight your value, really focusing only on the line items of what's included, feel very transactional instead of like you're actually helping them. See, I've got a few family members getting married right now, a bunch of Gen Zs in their 20s, and it's been a really interesting process to be along with them on the ride of venue selection. Of course, when they receive packages, I can look at it and it usually makes clear and understanding sense to me, but not always. Sometimes I see the venue packages and I'm just trying to do all the math to get to the final number and I get lost in the process. And I'm a pro who's been in the industry for almost 20 years. So if I don't understand it, the 20-year-olds in my family, they've already given up and moved on to the next thing. So let's talk through ways that we can actually change this and make little subtle differences that'll have a huge impact. First, we've got to talk about simplifying and clarifying the packages that you have and that you're offering. The concept of having very specific set packages, the good, better, best model, has been around for a long time. When car manufacturers started having here's the basic with roll down, no power windows, to power windows and power seats, to level 3 being the sunroof and all the bells and whistles, it made it much easier to buy. See, nobody walked in the door and bought the basic level and then said, I want to only have the windows and only this and only that. Too many choices got people overwhelmed. So what did they do? They packaged it all together. See, we live in this world of decision overwhelm. There's so many choices and decisions that we have to make all the time. We're in decision burnout. So we've got to simplify the process and break your packages into clear, easy to read sections of exactly what's in there. Now, I know this can be a little bit more complicated depending upon your type of venue. You could be a venue only venue, and this is a little simpler, but then you also might be venue plus food and beverage. And there's a lot of things that can go into that. But ultimately, they just want to know, what do I get and how much is it going to cost? So you have to figure out the easiest way to do that. I want you to also take a look at your packages and make sure you're using plain language, not industry jargon. I remember when Shivari chairs first came on the scene. I kept using the word Shivari, and the couples had no idea what I was talking about. So think about what words are you using that might be confusing them. When you look at the inclusions of things, of what it says, do they even understand what that means as part of the evaluation process? Also, what do your visual elements look like? Are you using icons and bulleted lists and spacing and bolding and italicizing to really highlight the key details that you want them to see? Are you putting too much in there, things that nobody cares about and they're not even considering? Sometimes you guys are including things listed in the package that the couple would just assume that you have, or they don't really care that you have it or that it's included. So there's no value there. So the next thing we need to do is really focus on the value, not just the line items. You need to show what makes your venue so different in every package. We've got to take all these things that you're listing as features and figure out how do we twist them into benefits. I remember back when I was buying my last car, and I knew I wanted something that was a hybrid model. And I was looking at these cars all over the place, and they said, oh, okay, it's 40 miles to the gallon and 38 miles to the gallon and 45 miles to the gallon. And in all honesty, I didn't even know what the car I was driving got to the gallon. And finally, I got to a car dealership who said to me, this vehicle, how far do you drive to work every day? And I said, I drive 50 miles each way. And he looked at it and he said, for gas for the entire month, how much are you spending now? And I said, almost $450. And he said, you'll spend less than $100 for gas. That is the difference between a feature and a benefit. 45 miles to the gallon is a feature. Saving hundreds of dollars on gas is the benefit. So all of the things that you have listed currently in your packages as features, we need to flip the wording as to what's the benefit and why does it matter. So for example, you might have ready room as a part of your package. I want you to flip that over and say it's a private suite for relaxing and getting ready. Sounds very different, right? Than just the bulleted point of ready rooms. You want to think through anything you have listed as a feature and say, so that we include ceremony chairs, so that your guests have somewhere to sit and relax during the ceremony, so that, we've got more than enough for your entire guest count. Think through all of the things that are included in your package. How can you make it sound more like a benefit so that you save the money and don't have to rent any additional chairs? You've got to really look at the things that your venue has that your competitors don't and really lean in on those. You can also include inclusions like social proof, like testimonials or real photos to start to connect those numbers and the dollars amounts that you're putting in there to the experience that they're going to have. Because right now you're just an inventory list of items attached to a dollar amount. Now, the other mistake you might be making is that you're not really controlling the flow of information. So when you think about what you're putting on your website, you've got to think about the goals that you have for every step along the sales funnel of the process. The website is about giving them enough information to get them to convert to an actual lead, because them just clicking around on your website doesn't make them a lead yet. So the website's goal is to give them enough information to want to fill out the form to get a little bit more information. If you give them everything that you've got in advance, then there's really no reason maybe for them to take the next step and ask more. And maybe your website hasn't done the best job of building the relationship. So you've got to give them enough to get them to take the next step. So the first step is for them to fill out that form and contact you on the website. This is where you would send over what we call the pricing guide. It's like a teaser, like a summary first. So your website would have things like starting prices or general ranges and maybe what's included and why couples love you. But then you're going to send over a pricing guide that's a much more detailed PDF that starts to outline specifically what's included in the packages. Then when they would come for a tour is where you give them all the bells and whistles. What we're seeing a lot is that our venues are putting either all the information on the website, which can get a little overwhelming, and maybe they never take that next step to reach out, or they're filling out the form and you're sending them over this huge, overwhelming PDF, and then they ghost you after that. That information with things like menus and exactly what's included and it's just too much, because the goal is to get them to come for a tour where you can get into a lot more detail with things like that. So you've got to think about a package roadmap. What do you want them to see when they first get there? What happens after they inquire with you? And what are they getting on the tour? so that they really know what to expect as part of the process. Your job as the tour guide in general is to guide couples with the next step. So the next step on your website when they see that is to reach out to receive our pricing guide. The next step after they get the pricing guide is to book a tour so we can go through everything included and show you what you're going to get. Every package and every step of the journey has to have a really clear call to action. Sometimes this is a huge fail for so many of the venues that when we start looking and I start evaluating, it doesn't actually tell them what to do next. You sent them out the email, you sent the PDF, but that PDF never says schedule a tour to see how this fits your vision. There's no link on there for them to take the next steps. So you want to use buttons and links to make it so easy for them to act on what you want them to do next. You can also do things like include an FAQ for the most popular package that you highlight so that it helps them make the decision faster. You've got a lower package, a super high-end package, and then in the middle is that most popular package that so many people choose. There's a huge difference in between a pricing guide and a tour packet. The pricing guide should be short, sweet, maybe 6 pages at the absolute most, having a pretty cover page, a welcome message, a good visual of your packages overview, the pricing snapshot, some FAQs and common concerns, and then the next steps. Short, sweet, visual. Realize that most people are looking at these on their phone itself. So you want it to be lots of photos and emotion, mix in reviews on these pages. All this kind of information should go into that pricing guide that you're sending over. So don't give them so much information on your website. There's no reason for them to reach out. Don't send a PDF with so much overwhelming content that they have no reason to even come and tour. They've been able to disqualify you already. Make sure you're thinking about the entire sales journey when it comes to your packages specifically. The key is to remember your packages are not just information. They're a sales tool for you. Instead of it just being a la carte, where you're paying per hour, per space, the goal is to make it so easy for them. When you simplify all of this and you start to highlight the value and you guide the couples towards the next step they should be taking, you'll move them from ghosted emails to real conversions that actually convert. That's it for today's episode of the Venue Helpline, and thank you so much for listening. We love helping you tackle all of these real-life frustrations. But don't just listen, put it into action. Grab the pricing guide playbook that's on the tools section of our website that goes perfect with today's episode. It's a 43-page guide of every single thing you need to know about what to put in your pricing guide. Sizes of fonts, types of pictures to choose, what goes exactly on what page, how to visually make your pricing guide so simple and easy to use. You'll find the link below in the show notes and use the code HELPLINE for 10% off your purchase. Thank you for calling the Venue Helpline.